COT's base of operations is right here at thecouncilofTime.com. COT has no other outlet or venue. These are other folks who will rebroadcast. Anything COT does is by the main page here at thecouncilofTime.com. Okay, I'm starting up the rest of the audio. Hopefully all of it starts. Yes, and the Pope made a comment about the war. That is not what you want to happen. Probably due to the magnitude of the assault Russia did with Ukraine. It was awful. And I cannot help but to have this almost a stomach-wrenching feeling regarding the upcoming days. I'm restarting everything now to see, hopefully, everything will be queued back up again. Did you guys hear the piano? Did you guys hear that? The piano. Somebody's curious about the portals. No, the 7 seals have nothing to do with the Pope. In fact, the 7 seals have nothing to do with anybody but Christ. Remember, Christ is the only one worthy to open the seals, so it has nothing to do with anybody here on earth, nor in the heavens except Christ. He's the only one authorized who went through his crucible and is now worthy to open those seals. Why would he be worthy and no one else worthy? That'd be a better question. Why is Christ worthy? Why is no one else found worthy? Simple answer. If you look at the seals, they affect humanity in a big way. Christ is the only one who walked our walk. He is the only one. Nobody else did. He did. In the Bible it says he was in all points tempted, as we are, but without sin. Right? So, Christ is found worthy. And when he opens the seals, he doesn't do it when we're not ready. Right? He covers us first. Then he'll open the seals. And my strong belief is that the seals have been opened. They're not going to open. I think that we have been conditioned to sin itself, and we can't see the degrading conditions that we were born into. If you start looking at righteousness and take another look at the world, every aspect of the world is perverted. Every aspect. No holiness is found in just about no institution out there. And everybody is indoctrinated into some sort of paradigm for the world, specifically for the world. So when Christ opens those seals, that is all of humanity will befall that, right? The Pope there's no person on earth who would ever have that power. They wouldn't. Humanity is flawed. The Pope is flawed. People are flawed. We're flawed, right? But Christ prevailed. He did prevail. Nobody else did. He did. So that's where we are. The portals the Pope will open, if you look closely into the history of those portals, he does that from time to time. In the Vatican, it's not like it's not a portal like a extraterrestrial portal or paranormal portal. It's simply an access, way of access, a door. It could be a door. I remember in one case it was part of the wall was removed. But they have their designates, and they are for specific times, the portals. I would encourage everybody to read about those portals, and I did take the liberty of finding something for you guys to take a look at. concerning the portals, because just to use that word it can throw you off, right? It sounds ominous. It does, but it's just a ritual thing. That's a ritual thing. Yeah, just to answer that. And I know. Christ needs no defense from me. I just get that way when it comes to Christ too. I'm careful to separate what is holy from what is unholy, right? And everything here on this earth is marked in the unholy category, for the most part. But, again, I'm wondering, are people really ready for the change? You know what? Tsunamis, some of these natural disasters we have had, they were doing a recap on a tsunami. You guys remember that tsunami back in 2004, I believe it was. You guys remember that? Nobody was ready for that. Nobody was. Life was lost, and the people that talked about it, some of the people that lived through it, the water was traveling between 200 and 500 miles an hour. People were crushed. This one lady was hanging on to a tree, and her hand was severed by the water. The water pulled her body from her hand that was lodged in a branch or something like that under some debris. So it took her hand. But the people, there was no recourse of action once they were caught in the flow of that water. Many died in the first 2 minutes. There's tens of thousands gone. We're going to see that again. The earth is like a soda ready to burst in many different places. And unlike those isolated events that have taken place over time, which, by the way, is mercy, right? We're going to have simultaneous events, build-ups. You know, I often read the Bible when the Lord is talking about the day of the Lord, that time, the day of the Lord. There's no escape, not like today, right? If there's a hurricane today, there are places in the world that they don't have hurricanes, or they're not in the storm. In this case, when the day of the Lord comes, the earth will be immersed in troubles on every side. They had a survey in space, and they were looking at several different fronts. We actually have trouble coming from all quadrants. All quadrants. If you took the earth, and you divided the earth into 4 pieces, right? From each direction, a problem is coming. Each one. So there's not like there's going to be an escape. It won't. We will entertain a sky full of smoke and hot debris. I don't know how long that will last. I can estimate, but I just don't know. But those type things are what's coming our way. And that's outside of what mankind can do. As man continues to degrade himself and move away from holy things. Because if you look carefully, it's almost like mankind has declared war against Christ. Look at the policies of all nations. Do they really honor Christ? No. No, they don't. These governments continue to fight for immorality, not morality. Immorality. Mankind has ventured far away from sound doctrine. And now everybody has their own individual hunt for both gains, power. They have this thirst for power and security. It's all they seek for. They'll destroy millions simply to have security. That makes no sense, does it? No sense. No sense at all. So, as conditions continue to build in relation to man's arrogance, we're going to have more problems. More problems. I know that Elon Musk did his best to provide internet for the world. That may be one of the main hubs for communication in a short time, in a very short time. We just have too many problems to face, and we can't escape it. It's not like we can, put thrusters on the earth and move out of the way. We can't do that. Can't do that. And given the scale of space out there, things are moving incredibly fast. And I know personally I have to get ready for the impact of such things, whether others are ready or not. I'm praying that others will take certain warnings seriously. Better sound, right? That now, I said sound, they can sound crazy, but that does not mean they're not sound. I think sometimes we make mistake between things being conventional, things being unconventional, and then we categorize those things as sound or not sound. No. We are going to have meteor storms, right? We have several things headed towards the Earth in the month of January. We're going to entertain those all 7, I believe they said, all 7. So we still have an impending impact. We were blessed last year about 28 times, I believe, 28 or 27 or 28 times, to have missed the major gravitational pull, which would have aligned some pretty large pieces of debris directly towards us. We're not going to be so lucky this time due to the arc of that debris. So it will skip over the forces that kind of held it in check. Jupiter's gravity is also altering. Its mass is fluctuating. That means, and it normally keeps rocks away from us. Without Jupiter, we would be hit every single day. Can you guys imagine that? Every single day, we'd be hit. When you start looking at these crater marks in the moon and, some of the old craters in the earth, there was a time when protection was minimal. And we're entering that time again. We've also come around, given they have refined how they date things, right? They don't necessarily do it from radiation because they know we had several radiation events. But, and this is going to sound strange, they get direct information from a few sources that are highly unconventional. Let's just say that mankind has found a gold mine in some ancient things, right? Ancient calendars, if you will, except these are somewhat alive, but they found some, pretty priceless things in there for them. That's why they can be so confident in moving around and doing things as though nothing is going to touch them. Unfortunately, we know where all of us are hitting that critical time when things will be obvious. Now, here's the unfortunate part. I want you guys to remember this. We will be hit before there's any indication that we will be hit. The first strike on the earth will take place without warning. There'll be no foreshadowing, no warnings, no anything. It'll just simply, we're going to be like this one day, and the next day, we're not going to be like this. Unfortunately, that's how that's going to be. And when you have less than, a 2-day warning, there's really nothing anybody can do about it, right? Given the uncertainty of, what it all entails too, that makes protecting the populace almost impossible. So it's going to be the beginning of a shock, yes. We also have a war beginning. And the Pope did speak towards that. I personally believe it's going to escalate very fast it's been escalating. It's getting worse, but it's going to get worse and worse. It'll become obvious when America's borders are hit. It'll be obvious. See, the truth is, we've been blessed all this time. Many things have been held back. Many things have not happened to us. Right? But most people say, well, hardly anything happens to the USA. No, wrong thinking. There has been a component that's been dissolving the actions of the enemy against the USA. Every single week, there's a major plot against the USA. Every single week. And it's only been God's grace that they have not been able to fully breach our securities here in this nation. That will not last, because now the war is turning from sneaking around trying to plant biological weapons here and there to missile fire. Right now they're going to probe to see what the U.S. can actually do. Do you hear me? And who's going to do this? Russia is going to do this. They want to know what we have. They want to really know what we don't have. They want to know what we'll commit and what we will not commit. How do you do that? You provoke your enemy. So get ready for provocation. It's unavoidable now. Unavoidable. Somebody said, was in Joshua 10 where the Lord took out most of the enemy, more were destroyed in hailstones. Yes. Keep in mind, though, in times of old, right, when God gave his people a commission to go from one place to another, because he ordered that, right? God is the one that said, go from this place to that place, right? So guess what? When God tells us to go somewhere, he empowers us to go somewhere, right? Nothing's going to obstruct our path. He'll take care of it. It's no big deal for him. In the end times, however, man is guiding himself. Man has become so iniquitous that they begin to move against the Most High on every front. Think about that. See, in this case, unlike the Old Testament, the Lord is not commanding the USA. The USA is commanding the USA. Right? They're not really taking the full counsel of those who believe in God, and some people who believe in the Most High are speaking what they think should be done, not necessarily what the Lord has given them. See, because if the Lord gives us something, it comes to all of us. All of us could agree it came from him. All of us could. Just as sure as all of us can say Jesus is Lord, we would be able to say, yes, those plans are from the Most High. Right? Because the Lord said that himself. He'll no longer give things in secret like that, but he gives them to the whole body so that we can confirm instantly what the Lord has given to anybody else. He also puts that same thing in us. In this case, though, we have a lot of people who are doing what they believe they should do, right? And oftentimes, we know people do this. They'll make a move and say that God said to do it. So they start using God to convince people. But the truth is, they didn't hear from the Most High. Because there are no instant consequences. They continue to use the Most High's name, his scriptures. They continue to use that for their own advancements. We know that. But iniquity is the mark of every nation. And if you look in this nation, what do you actually see? Don't look at prosperity, because in the Bible, a nation is rated by the poor. How we take care of the poor, well, that rates a nation. And we're just not. There's some things that most people just don't know, or nobody wants to really talk about it. Every day, maybe you guys can agree, but every day, shouldn't somebody be protesting the laws against kidnapping children and women. Wouldn't you agree? Why is that not talked about ever? Why? It seems like people are complicit with that. It's not even on their minds. That's what it seems like. Why would a nation not make that a priority? Why? I'll tell you why. Because that nation is ran by people who have full knowledge of it and are quite complicit with it. They have a lot of smoke and mirrors shows to gobble up your time and interests, to feed you things you don't want. While these things like child abduction continues to rise in the USA. You would think, because the future of any nation is the children, you would think they would protest something. You would think that people would do the same, but they're not. No one is organizing, demanding that something be done about the kids. We can go to space, but we can't create optics that can track a child's skeletal structure. But we can do that for adults, just not children. We can do it for animals, just not children. Really? We're losing it. And that comes with consequences. Now, the Lord promised that when the nations become highly immoral, all things will unfold. That is the perfect clock that will never fail. It is based on the iniquity of the nations. That's your father's clock. You know in the Bible when he said the iniquity is great, the fats overflow, come ye, get ye down there, for the harvest is ready. Because of what? Iniquity. Iniquity is the clock. The weight of iniquity. How rotten things have become. Things are rotten to the core. We're far too complicit. Far too complicit. We're easily distracted. As human beings, we are. And it still seems like everybody is so tied up in their own affairs. They can't risk anything for the sake of somebody else's affairs. And yet, there's still no outcry. There's no outcry. This week, coming up, you're going to hear people talk about loans, school loans. You'll see protests for school loans. You will not see a protest. You won't see a protest for how passive this government has become with our children, with the future. What country could ignore their kids? People love their freedom, but I tend to see things differently. This world is like a vice. People are so used to it they can't feel the vice anymore because people have had no freedom. Freedom is an illusion. It's what people think they have. Think about that. Freedom is something people believe that they have, but they don't. They don't. But they don't care so long as they can consume and spoil themselves. That's a trade-off. That's how they keep people content. They present them something new by way of technology. Technology is a cornerstone to all the policies a nation would put out. Do you know that? Because they know that with new technology, there's a learning curve. And when it's exciting, people will take the time to learn what they need to learn to stay adapted to society. They know that. So they can tie up people's time with technology. So easy. Entertainment. Netflix. You ought to look into the numbers of how many people stream Netflix every single day in the USA. Do that by the count of the people in the USA and be astounded of how many people are locked in to some device all day long. Those are high numbers. And keep in mind, when you're watching something, you're not really learning, right? You're hearing it, but you're not learning. That's why in this day and age, people can hear a lot, consume a lot. But when it comes to practical knowledge or utilizing the knowledge that they have gained, they can't do it most of the time. Is that making a person smart? No. It's propaganda of the highest order. It's altering people's minds. Right? It really is. But we know that. We know that iniquity is rising beyond belief. We know that the Pope today is trying to broker peace. Do you guys know that? We talked about this the beginning of last month. Remember? We talked about that the beginning of last month. The Pope would broker a peace, or attempt to broker a peace. And here it comes. See, because if they don't bend to the Pope's rules, well, he'll speak an edict. He will. It's coming. Pretty quickly, too. Pretty quick. Pretty quick. I hope people are ready. Guys, be ready for all surprises. Please. All of them. And most importantly, I know that many of you do this, but stay locked into the foundations of faith. You know, in Revelation, when he gives us advice, recommendations, Jesus did, about what to do, remember when he said, consider the first works. You remember that? Consider the first works. Well, the first works of a person when they come into the fold is a work of faith. It's when a person believed so much that they would jump out there and tell everybody the good news, no matter who they were. They also had faith that anybody could be saved. They did. We did. Remember that? Then as we go through life, you find you have traitors in the midst. Things don't quite work out right. It makes you bitter to a degree. You begin to scratch things off your list. People off your list of who you think can be saved. Some you won't go to at all. But when you were first saved, when the Lord saved you, you were elated. I remember saying to myself, if he can do it to me, he can do it to anybody. Of course, I still believe that today. I do. I really do. But our first works were works of faith. A childlike faith, fully in the Father, and his ability to do things. Now, in this day and age, we have to be careful not to question. Simply learn of his ways, sit back and watch his ways manifest over and over again, but be careful in disrespecting the work of the Most High. Be careful in that. Be careful in that. As these times come, and right before they come anyway, there's a pattern in the Bible. Have you guys noticed before any nation fell, a couple things happened over and over again. The people were at a height of activity. They were very active in their respective kingdoms at the time, and they were fully committed to their own kingdom, the ways of their kingdom, so much so they were not paying attention to what they used to pay attention to. They had become gluttons of their own nations, right? Stakeholders, very comfortable. Yet, we know that in those nations of old, people suffered. We know that. In all those kingdoms, people suffered greatly, and no one could hear their cry, could they? No one, until those cities were liberated. The U.S. is like that. There are people every single day suffering in silence. No rescue in sight, right here in the USA. They're trapped by many means. There's no rescue. Those people who are trapped, God will hear them. He's not going to hear the proud mouth, right? Those who have it gone on, he's not listening to them. But those who are crying out to him. We still have, starvation in this country. We do. People are slipping through the cracks. So what we face, we're going to face extremely soon, right? Extremely soon. Be ready. Be ready. Be ready by knowing, reading the Word, not solving it, just reading it, and being ready for what the Lord spoke. Be ready for His Word. That's all. That's that simple. To be ready for the Lord's Word to be true. That's all, to be real. You don't have to articulate it. He will not fail in what He's doing, and never forget why He's doing what He's doing. Is He allowing the seals to be opened so people can suffer, so you can suffer? No. He's not. But I'll stand firm on this. The Lord's going to cause what we trust in to burn up in our faces. What we're leaning so heavily on. What causes us, right? It gives us security outside of Him. He's going to test it by fire. If it's of Him, it will not burn. If it's not of Him, it will burn. Now, in the Bible, it says, not to your destruction, but it's for your total liberation. So you have to ask yourself, do you trust your Father in His decree to fully deliver you? If you do, then mentally, make sure you understand that. Or you don't panic. Because, by the way, why would anybody be fearful of what our Savior is doing? Our Savior opens the seals. Our Savior determines that time. Our Savior is doing this. I'm not going to be afraid of what my Savior is doing, because whatever He does is for our victory. Those who really belong to Him. Not those who don't. Those who belong to Him. Remember that. Please remember that. Somebody says either Michael does the Duke of Luxembourg. I'm Dixie me. Anything else? I'm standing next to someone wearing black suit with a red tie. Ooh. Did you? Okay. Trump didn't have one on, right? No? Hope not. Bad look for him. He's going to finish this work with your eyes. If you're going to see it, you're meant to see it. You know that, right? If you're here right now, and you begin to see things, you're meant to see it. You're meant to. Try to remember those things so that you're not fearful. Remember, our Father did not give us a spirit of fear. But if you're here, you're meant to view what you view. And everything is taking place for your victory. It's for your victory. It's not for your destruction. Now, the Lord will, thank you, Sister Mary brought that up, 1 Corinthians 3:15. If any man's work shall burn, he shall suffer loss. But if he himself shall be saved, if it burns, they're going to be saved, right? Yet so as by fire. In other words, God will test all things. He said anything committed to him is going to be tried by fire. If it burns up, it is so that we do not cling to falsehoods. Say, for example, a person believes in a specific narrative of life. That narrative of life must fail. You see that? Say, for example, a person, they're doing things and they believe that the Lord is going to protect them no matter what. It's going to have to be tried. Everything that we believe and hold close to us is going to be tried by God's fire. If it gets burnt up and it does not work out, well, then guess what? When something false is burnt up, that's when we can have the real thing. You know what that's called? Liberation. It's called liberty, freedom. But if we're holding a falsehood, the Lord said he would deal with it. It's going to be tried by fire. Do you all see how that works? It's quite simple. If we trust in something, right, it's going to be tried by fire. The Lord does not want us embracing falsehoods. He already knows that sometimes, that most often, we cannot tell what a falsehood is. We don't know. So when it, evaporates and it has no power to withstand, we're going to say, well, that had no promise in it at all. But it's gone. Once you're rid of something like that, then you can easily see the truth and embrace it. But if you're holding on to something already, you will not embrace God's truth because you're already holding on to something you think came from your father. You guys see how that works? And he's going to burn it up. When he said he would deliver us, he meant it. Fully delivered. Not halfway. He's not going to halfway deliver us. He's going to fully deliver us. And this is for full qualifications. He will deliver us. Now, for some, it may look bad. Say, for example, if somebody lost their business, they lost everything. That's not the end of life for them. Because if they belong to him and they turn to him, he will guide them in a true direction. They won't cling to a falsehood, but will be free. You see that? They'll be free. If anybody is holding on to a falsehood during the times we live in now, and they continue with that falsehood, they will perish of the soul and of the flesh. How many want to be liberated? I would say quite a few. Fully liberated from whatever ails you, whatever the issue is. Fully liberated. The absolute victory. That's what your Father's doing. That's what he's doing right now. And he will not fail. He's not going to fail. Remember that. And always entrust him with those around you. Always. Always. The time you live in right now, some characters, when they come forward, most of you are going to be thrown back by this. Remember something. Nobody knows everything about what exists out there. Even with the little bit I know that I never hear you guys talk about, I would say that all of us collectively know about 5% of the physical things on this earth. 5% at most. We don't know the other 95%. That means we hardly know anything about our own reality. That's what it means. We hardly know anything. But I'm telling you right now, you're going to be thrown off by what comes forward. It will not make sense to your senses. It's not going to compute. It's just not going to, it's going to seem surreal. But it will be real. It will also be deadly and costly. Time for us to get ready for the truth of the passage of prophecies. Not some interpretation, but the real deal. Now, the real prophecies, they come with consequences to our eye. What I mean by that is, can you imagine a person who, they're doing their job in the world, and then one day, 2,000 people die, except for that person and a few others. So they see all those people they knew intimately. They die. Dead, gone. None of them, no indication that anybody would die the day prior or the hour prior. But 2,000 of those people die. It'd be like you living in a neighborhood and your whole neighborhood die, except you. How would you feel if that happened? How would you actually feel if that were to take place? Could you still, live your life? How would your faith be in that moment? Would it be shaken a little bit? Shouldn't be. Not if your faith has been tried. But if your faith has not been tried, you will be shaken. When your faith is tried, your Father makes it real. Most people believe in death as men have described it. I can assure you, if you saw enough death, you would not believe in it as men have described it. You would have too many experiences. After going through great losses, you can no longer live your life according to what men prescribe because you know it's not real. When you're immersed in a real situation, it brings about real change from within. Otherwise, we're narrating what we think is going to happen, what we think will be like, what we think our responses are going to be. But in all cases, it is what we think. It is not the absolute of what is. It's not. And when people suffer great losses, it'll change some things. My advice is this, is to cling to Christ. Cling to Him. And remind yourself that He is the perfection you're seeking. He is the perfection of the saints. Christ is. And since He is the perfection of the saints, the completion of the saints, that means you don't have to know everything. Because your Messiah does. That should leave you free enough so that when these things begin to take place to everybody, you'll be spared what others won't be spared. See, others have already determined in their minds what may or may not happen or what may or may not be the outcome to something. Don't do that. Leave it to your Father. That's what I'm telling you. Leave that to your Father. Leave the outcome to the Most High. And live your lives in liberty. Never saying what won't take place. Never saying what will take place. Just leave it in His hands. And day by day, press toward the mark of the high calling. That is, higher and higher standards in the Lord. For yourself. You know why I tell you guys I don't judge? I can't judge. People don't like that statement, but I can't. I can't judge. I'm in a fallible body. If I'm wrong in one area, listen to this. If a person, say a person, I just think they're not, not up to par on a few things, right? And in my heart of hearts, I think of that person in a certain light. And that's the way I think about them. To keep that means I'm actually responding to somebody or acting to somebody based on my own personal evaluation of that individual. Now, it is true, the only part of that individual I'm able to see is their flesh. You can't see their spirit. You can't. Any insights are going to come by what the person has demonstrated, but the majority of that person you don't know. To judge a person, you have to know what truly made them do something. You have to know it in truth. The only way to know that is to know the spirit of that person. Otherwise, we don't know. Do you guys see that? Why am I saying that? Because if you judge, and I'm telling you something I know, if you pass a sentence on anybody, you're going to be held by the standard of your own judgment. Do you hear me? Hope you hear me. You're going to be held by that standard from the Most High. So when favor is not coming to you, it's going to be a direct consequence of what you have pulled back from somebody else. I hope you guys know that. Now, we're not talking about the heathen on the street, right? Leave those to the Most High. No. You guys and each other. Leave judgment unto the one who can do something about it. That's the first definition, to walk around. One of 7. One of 7. But remember that. It'll save you some headaches. Okay, somebody said, never mind. You guys still having fog? Is everybody, who's having fog? I reminded somebody about I only know of 2 people who ever talked about the fog. I know I saw it one time. And fog was all over the earth at a given time. But there was only one other person I knew that dreamt about that and talked about that. I believe the majority of the fog we're going to have is due to man's arrogance. He got a little too happy in constructing nuclear power plants. That's a lot to protect. That task has become overwhelming. And we're losing containment. You think they'd tell you if they lost containment on one? Not really. Not in the beginning. They would eventually. They would. All right, folks, let's see what time is it. I'm going to give you guys a break. I'm going to be back here in a few. I'm not going anywhere. We have some systems to test here to make sure everything is working. And I've got to get our alert system working too. We're going to need that. Probably sooner than we think. Plus, they just, they're hooking up even right now. You know what they've been doing yesterday on Christmas? Today, they were doing it 2 days prior to that. They were putting in the software for the air raid systems in the USA. Yeah, that directive came from Virginia. That's a Quantico thing. But yeah, they had to upgrade the software in that and make sure that everything is working. In fact, they're refitting most of the emergency systems in the USA. Their mandate to be done is February 2nd. Everything has to be ready to go by February 2nd. Folks, I'm going to see you guys in a little bit. Right here at COT. And, oh, by the way, is the sound clear on all channels? Are we clear on all channels? I know somebody said 0 was good. What about channel 6? Is it okay? Channel 6, is that good to go? Mixler is good, no hic. Well, nobody's on there really yet. It always, throws a fit after a specific time when lots of people log on. I think they're doing load sharing or something. They don't carry the load for everybody. I'm pretty sure they are allocating that load throughout systems. But so long as we have 0, so long as 0 is good, so long as 6 is good, so long as some of the other channels are device specific, so it depends on what type of device you have. They have different protocols for different systems, different methods of streaming for different systems. Based on whether you have Windows or whether you have an iPhone or Mac or something like that. So it's going to change according to your ISP, what they handle, and your device. Hopefully everything is fine-tuned. It works. It's working out a little better now. Hopefully. We'll see. Hopefully so. Somebody says, Pastor Paul back up and running. I don't know. I'm going to check and see, though. Because it dawned on me this morning. Today is Thursday. I'm missing a day somewhere. I thought today was Wednesday. Somebody says, can I answer a question? Yes. Go ahead. Anytime. You guys can ask a question at any. I like questions. I do. I like them. Except for whose questions? Somebody asked questions. They put me on the spot. Can't really answer all those. Better hurry, though. Let's hear the question. We're waiting. Oh, by the way, can you guys tell? Oh, okay, here it is. Let me see. I feel like I'm being tried by fire right now in regards to my marriage. How do we deal with the possibility of either substance abuse and or infidelity and confirmed lies from bipolar person? Well, first of all, that's so common these days. You have to ask yourself. Do you love that person? You really love that person? If you say yes, then that person is not separate from you. If you're married to that person, you are one flesh. So think of it as your left side not being coordinated with the right. Right? If you love that person, then fight for that person. You're given an opportunity to see your Father work. To work in a way that most believe to be impossible. Question is, do you love that person? If you truly love that person, don't throw them to the wolves. You're their covering, right? And you have to separate that person from the substance and what the substance makes them do. It's going to make them lie. It's going to make them get off the hot seat, right? Yes, they're going to devise things because that call, whatever that call is, connected to that substance is very strong. Have to have an understanding of that. All right. Prayer is going to be your best ally, but also direction. So I would encourage you to ask the Lord for direction. And don't forget you asked that question, right? Also, Make sure love is in the atmosphere. Let the person know, right? Especially if a person starts telling a non-truth, then let that person know, say, hey, you're safe here. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Encourage the person that, hey, they don't have to lie. If they have a problem, then you have a problem. And if you love that person, right? You know how in the Bible it says, mourn with those who mourn? Well, in this case, don't allow a person to suffer by themselves. If you love that person, then love that person. I can assure you that love will start, if you do that, that type of love will start breaking down barriers. You'll find that the whole problem was a spiritually driven problem. You have an opportunity to be a witness if you love that person. Now, what does the Bible say when you're with an unbeliever? What does the Bible say in the New Testament? One of the apostles said it. He said, I don't give you a new commandment. He kind of give you some advice in an area, right? Because the Lord already has to separate from a person. Most people make a mistake. They're separating from one person. They've already found somebody else, and they want to leave that for the better thing over here. You're going to mess yourself up doing that. Don't do that. Be committed. Be committed. Because I'll tell you something. It takes a dark time to really find out, to really forge a good relationship. You have to have that dark time. And when you can fight through that dark time, after you emerge, nothing can break you apart. Most people don't know this because they bail out too much. The hard times, they define us. They do. We're not defined until we're tossed into the fire. You get to find out your strengths and weaknesses. They do too. Continue to pray for the person. But if you love that person, love them and constantly forgive them, right? Involve your father. Involve him. Don't do it by yourself. Involve him. He has power, right? In that situation, you need power in that situation. And keep us mindful and keep us updated. We're family here. You shouldn't be on your own in this. And you're not. You can have a big support system. Big support system. Somebody said, please help me reconcile what you said about Jesus holding the keys to life and death. Yes. What you said about chemtrails and geoengineering, the idea. Yes. I'm going to tell you something. I'm a living witness. I am one of 5 people that are still alive, and 300,000 are not alive. How about that? That seems extreme, but it's not. I'm still alive. I had a higher dose of things than they did. But I'm still alive. I'm not supposed to be alive. No, certain conditions do not reverse. They don't reverse. So let me tell you this first. The Lord sustains who he sustains. He has the keys of hell, death, and the grave. Satan does not control death. He does not. That's something that people continue to miss. Satan does not have the keys of death. He used to. Satan had the liberty of imposing death upon people, right? He did. Not anymore. He does not. Jesus determines who stays and who goes. He has the keys of hell, death, and the graves. Does he not? Yes, he does. Satan does not have them anymore. A person will not go anywhere. They're not going anywhere until the Lord says they're going somewhere. Why Jesus? Because he is the Savior. He determines. He knows who believes in him. He knows who he has a relationship with. And mercy and grace are upon humanity. Mercy and grace, you know what that means? That means we live despite what we have done. We're still alive. It is the reason you have Hitlers and Saddam Husseins. Without grace and mercy, these men would have never been alive. They would have been destroyed in their youth before anybody ever knew them. How they grow up the way they grew up? Because of God's grace and mercy. Everybody on this earth has an opportunity. So if a person regardless of the past, if they come here to this earth, if they're born in a body, in a human body, they have an opportunity. They have an opportunity. Oh, it did. It restarted. Channel 0 is still going, but the main system restarted. Do you see that, guys? So if you're on Channel 0, that's a shame, isn't it? They just won't let up, will they? They will not let up. They won't do it. They won't do it. Okay, you know what happened with that if you're on Channel 0? That was a forced system restart. A restart. The computer can't restart. You guys don't understand this. Windows is not Windows anymore. I've taken so many things out of Windows. It cannot operate like that. And yet they try to force a restart on everything as soon as I start talking, no matter what time I start talking. Doesn't matter what time. They try to force it on all machines. Talking about some harassment. It's ridiculous. This is every single time. Every single time. Ridiculous. You guys on Channel 0, right? Tell everybody the other one is going to come back up again. It'll come back up again. But listen, I'm going to be back here shortly anyway. So we have the audio is working. I'll be back anyway. Okay. We're going to find out Pastor Paul's still having a broadcast tonight. Because we know that New Year's is coming up and he normally does his New Year's thing, right? So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. All right. It's going to take a minute. Everything will be back on. You guys let everybody know that everything is okay, but they try to force a restart, and it hits the computer on Channel 6, the management system. Channel 0 is hardwired, so it didn't really go anywhere. They're trying to find that, but they can't. It's radio. It's offline, so can't really do anything with that. Okay? Can't really do anything. All right, everybody, I'll be back in a minute. The questions on marriage, I'm going to write some scriptures down for that so you guys have them. That's because I sympathize with those issues. I do. I sympathize with them. Listen, I'll be back in a few minutes right here on Channel 6 and Mixler as soon as, Channel 6 pops back up again. I'll be right back, guys. Make sure everybody knows, too.